topic of today's panel is Hinduism and the Hindutva movement. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our two really eminent panelists, Ratan Shardaji and Dr. D.K. Hari and Hema Hariji. Welcome. And I'm so delighted to have all of you here to talk to us about this important topic. And I will first introduce Dr. D.K. Hariji and Hema Hariji, who are actually exploring the civilizational aspect for the last couple of decades, And so they are both corporate professionals who gave up that for their calling and decided to explore the civilizational, Indic civilization through our own Indic lens. And I have attended their sessions on Bharat Gyan, a portal that they run, and through Hindu University of America. They are teachers in both these places and in art of living as well. So I have been floored by some of the information that they have shared. They are authors of various books. They write blogs. They've written so many articles, and these are phenomenal because of the fact that all our media is basically, inundated with very different contexts, whereas their portal talks about it through a Indic civilizational lens. So welcome. And before I hand over the floor to you, I would also like to welcome Dr. Ratan Shardaji. And, we know him very well from he being such a well-known TV personality. He's an author and columnist, and he's an official PhD on RSS, having authored several books on RSS, and given us that understanding of an organization that is talked about so much, but some of us who may not have attended the shakas or have not understood it so well. So Dr. Ratan Shardaji has written one of his famous books is Secrets of RSS, Demystifying the Sangh, which has gone into multiple editions. And he has also written a book on Guru Nanak Dev and has another upcoming book, Conflict Resolution, the RSS Way. So he's also a columnist in various newspapers. But thank you and welcome, Ratan Shardaji. And I'm so delighted to have you. And we will have 15 minutes of talk from D.K. Hariji and Hema Hariji, and then move on to Ratan Shardaji. So over to you, D.K. Hariji and Hemaji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Richa Gautam, for this very nice introduction. We'd also like to thank Dr. Jai Bansal for inviting us to be part of this panel, and to Shri Kalyan Vishwanathan for informing us about this wonderful program. So getting on to the subject of the day, we thought, as was mentioned, the three keywords or the few keywords. The word Hind, how did it come about? The word Hindu, how did it come about? The Hinduism, how did Hinduism come about? And that leading on to Hindutva. We're just going to look at these four for the next, as she said, 15 minutes, as Ms. Richa said, 15 minutes. We look at this. We will show you different aspects of these four words and then try to understand, because that is the fundamental basis for us to understand. Because when you start to understand something, we should know what are we trying to say. So we look at that now. So we'll actually show you a very short film for about 120 seconds or so on how the word Hind came about. We made this film about 10 years ago. We'll just show it to you briefly, how the word Hind actually came to be. We'll share screen now.
How and when did Bharat get the name India?
In the Persian language, the syllable sa was pronounced as her. So the Persians and Arabs who came east towards the river Sindhu called the land around and beyond the river Sindhu as Hind. From this came Hindu, Hindustan. As the word Hind traveled west towards Greece from Persia, in the Greek language, H was interchangeable with I, thus Hind became Ind, Inde. Greek scholars of 200 BCE Huitinga and Ptolemy both show India as Indi in their maps.
Thereafter, the term Hindi, Inde, India came to be.
So we see here how from the river Sindh, which is there in our national anthem, when we sing Jana Gana Mana, we have the term Sindh in it. And we have a province called Sindh, of which Karachi was the old capital, where all the Sindhis lived. So from that, how the phrase morphed to become Hind, and thereon it went. So it moved from area to area, across civilizations, across centuries, across tongues. So that's how we got the term Hind. And from there on, we got the term Hindu. Now let's see how we got the term Hindu, because we all are Hindus. But how did we get the term Hindu, first of all?
So we also see that this word Hind actually has its roots from a geographical concept, the river Sindh and the geography around it. And now we shall just go into a couple of people who have shown us how the word Hindu has been coined and used.
See, if you look at the term Hinduism, you can see it was roughly coined about 200 years ago, actually by the Christian missionaries, to identify the Indic religions. So that is how it came about. And here are some people who speak Hindu. So look at this. This is a famous author who has written this book, The Meaning and End of Religions, in which he very clearly writes, he's a Canadian and he's a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences.
And he says that the term Hinduism is a particularly false conception, one that is conspicuously incompatible with any adequate understanding of the religious outlook of Hindus. Even the term Hindu was unknown to the classical Hindus. Hinduism as a concept they certainly did not have. There are Hindus, but there is no Hinduism.
And he goes on to say,
it was probably first imagined by the British in the early part of the 19th century to describe and create and control.
So look at the key word here, to control.
An enormously complex configuration of people and their traditions found in the South Asian subcontinent. So fundamentally, a term to actually describe the confusion that they had. And
he goes on to write,
and
page 9.
Actually, we'll just go to the bottom line, is solely the creation of the scholar's study. So when they were trying to describe this religion from a scholastic perspective, that is when they come up with this idea and the term Hinduism to club all the commonality that they are able to see in the diverseness, the diversity that exists.
And here's a person, Freikenberg, who writes,
there has never been any one religion nor even one system of religions to which the term Hindu can be accurately applied. No one so-called religion, moreover, can lay exclusive claim to be or to be defined by the term Hinduism. The very notion of the existence of any single religious community by this name, one may further argue, has been falsely conceived. And he says so beautifully that newly coined concept of Hinduism to scholars in the Enlightenment, from Nathaniel Brassey, Halhead, and William Jones to Max Muller. So fundamentally, he's showing how this term is coming about when the scholars are trying to understand and describe, understand, classify, in order to be able to control the diverse nature that is existing in the Bharat that they have encountered.
So this is actually a book called Hinduism Reconsidered. Look at that. So they are trying to control our viewpoint, and we get on to now Richard King. Look at what he speaks about Orientalism religions.
And he says Hindu, in fact, only came into prominence among Westerners in the 18th century. Although there were references in the 18th century to the religion of the Gentus. So note here, the term Gentu like other terms, functioned as an alternative to heathen.
Look at this term Gentoo. Before they called us Hindus, they called us Gentus. And do you know what this term Gentoo means? It means in the Indian languages, Jantu. Jantu means creepy, crawly creatures. So they originally called all Hindus creepy, crawly creatures, detestable creatures, and then they gave an honorific term to us. So the Hindu is actually a very honorific term that they coined for us. Now let's see how this came about. So look at how they have step by step, they have tried to trample upon us, control us.
The key to the West's initial postulation of the unity of Hinduism derives from the Judeo-Christian presuppositions of the Orientalists and missionaries, and especially their conviction that distinctive religions could not coexist without frequent antagonism. So they are applying their lens that how can religions coexist? So there cannot be so much diversity without antagonism. So if they are not, so there is, look at the hidden line that's coming out, that despite this diversity, there is so much of harmony that they are seeing, and that they are in this belief that how can there be so much of harmony when there is this diversity, and that the relatively peaceful coexistence of the various Hindu movements could not be explained without some sense of religious unity. So they ascribe this religious unity with the term Hindu.
Look at this. See, they are coming out of Dark Ages. So they had 1,000 years of Dark Ages, and then they have had the Crusades. So there's animosity behind religion. So they're applying a Abrahamic lens on Hinduism and creating a term for it. So very clearly, so it's quite apparent there. So it's a Judeo-Christian tradition they are trying to apply on us. And going on to Ziegelbalg. He's a German. He writes a book called Malabarische Heathendom. See what he says in this.
So he says primarily you can see sects, and he says all the inhabitants, he calls them the main sects.
Haupt, obviously, the German means main.
Hauptsekten. And of course, he sees only Shaivism and Vaishnavism, but there are many more as we know. And he says all the inhabitants of the whole earth are divided into four main religions, Hauptreligionen. Thus, there are Jews, Christians, Mohammedans, and heathens. So it is to this heathen that they ascribe, and to the heathens in South Asia, as they call it. So all the heathens in this part of the world, which they are encountering for the first time, he says the heathens make up the largest of these four main, but they are, however, not uniform. And East Indian heathens are once again divided into different sects. So these heathens are what they end up calling as Hindus.
Hindus. So where did they get the name Hindus from? How did they suddenly coin the name Hindu? 200 years ago is what we have to see.
And looking at the underlying meaning of the word, if you look at what is heathen, it is from a Germanic word, one who lived in the country or on the heaths, moors, and in the woods. And therefore, in their thought, considered to be uncultured.
So they came and cultured us. Look at the idea.
And pagan as a country dweller or villager, nature worshippers. So when they see these kind of aspects in the people in these parts of the world, where it is so lush and green and tropical, and a lot of villages and farmers, and so they group everybody as heathens, and then they assign the word Hindu.
First is heathens, then Jantu, then Hindu. Now we'll see how they got the word Hindu. Look at this.
So it is not that the word Hindu did not exist before at all. In the 1300s itself, you see Isami, who was a medieval historian, he has used a couple of terms, one which is Hinduan and one which is Indian. So he says the people of India, the inhabitants of India, whether they are Muslims or Hindus, they are Hindian because they are in the region of Hind.
Geography.
And in amongst these people, those who are non-Muslim inhabitants of this region, he calls them Hinduan. So from here, it was very easy for the British to get the word Hindu and assign it to the people of this part of the world.
Heathens and the Jentus. Okay. And we have one more person, this Urdu poet, Amir Khusro, Persian Urdu poet, who had a Turki father and a Rajput mother. And he brings in the Hindustani and Hindutva. Look at that. He brings in this. So these are how the terms came about. So if you look at this, what comes out to us is none of these terms are actually ours. It was given to us. Given this, let's see, how do we classify it as a single religion is what we need to see.
So while they categorized the people initially, how did it get formalized into a religion per se is one we have seen from the British because of their administrative reasons, and later by the Indian constitution itself.
So if you look at Hindu law per se, it comes from Henry Maine. So he started speaking to the scholars of India, and he created the law for Hindu religion. So actually, the Hindu law comes from Maine's law. That's how it comes to us. And if you see further from there, the Supreme Court of India picks it up from the Maine's law, and then they cement the whole process of Hinduism.
So it becomes, so they say that it is difficult, if not impossible, to define Hindu religion or even adequately describe it. The Hindu religion does not claim any prophet. It does not worship any one god, not subscribe to any one dogma, any one philosophic concept, religious rites or performance, and so on. So they go on to say it may broadly be described as a way of life and nothing more.
And in 1966, look at this. So they very clearly say it's not like any religion, but they make it one. Look at this strong statement again. This is by the Supreme Court of India once again.
See, from time to time, saints and religious reformers attempted to remove from the Hindu thoughts and practices elements of corruption and superstition, and that led to the formation of different sects. Buddha started Buddhism, Mahavir founded Jainism, Basava became the founder of Lingayat religion, Dhyaneshwar and Tukaram initiated the Varkari cult, Guru Nanak Sikhism, Dayananda with Arya Samaj, Chaitanya Bhakti cult. And as a result of the teaching of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda, Hindu religion flowered into its most attractive, progressive, and dynamic form. Keep in mind these words, attractive, progressive, and dynamic. If we study the teachings of these saints and religious reformers, we would notice an amount of divergence in their respective views, but under that divergence, there is a kind of subtle, indescribable unity which keeps them within the sweep of the broad and progressive religion. So this is fundamentally what people notice in Hinduism, and they say that it has been a progressive religion because time and again it has evolved, it has adapted to the change around them in ecology, environment, in fundamentally the nature around them, as well as the nature of the people. And this is what is Sanatana Dharma, which is what we have actually been following in this land from eons.
And the word Sanatana, if you look at the word, the Sanatana means eternal, ever young, as well as ancient. See, so two ends of the spectrum. One spectrum, end of spectrum, you call it ancient. Another end of spectrum, you call it ever young. That means what? It can reinvent itself every day, in tune with the times, in tune with science, in tune with reality. So scientificness, Vijnana, is very important for the Hindu thought, Dharma. And it's Dharma, that which bears you, your character, not just conduct limitedly, but Dharma that bears you.
So this is what we have actually been following. And fundamentally, we have to realize that we also have a term. So while we have been following Sanatana Dharma, we have lived as per Dharma, we have a separate term for religion, which is called Mata, which comes from applying your intellect. Mati.
So we have a term for religion, that is Mata, that's not Dharma. Dharma is your character. Then going on to this, the word Hindutva, which is what our friend Dr. Ratan Shah is taking on from here. So we'll just show you in a minute. So normally the term Hindutva is what most people say is attributed to Veer Savarkar and in his book 1923, the book Hindutva. But if you look at it, actually, it goes before that. It goes back to probably these three people and Chandranath Basu, who wrote this book in 1892, 40 years before that, in this particular book, where he brings in the term Hindutva. So what does this term mean, actually, Hindutva then? The way your Shiva Tattva. And the different...
Yeah. So fundamentally, when you use a tva with a word, it denotes the essence of it. So Shiva, and then you have the Shiva Tattva. Then when you say Mahat, something that is great, and then you have Mahatva, so the greatness. So like that, the Hindu, the Hinduness, that is the essence of Hindu thought, and that is the principles of and the concepts which are in the Hindu Dharma. So Hindutva is nothing but that which tries to bring to fore the essence in Hindu Dharma. Out of all this myriad diversity, what is the commonality that is underlying all these diverse practices, beliefs, and thoughts and ideas? What is that one commonness? And how do you define it? And we have seen many people are saying it is impossible to define it. But even so, in that, what is that one commonness that can hold everybody together? That is what Hindutva is all about.
In this key point is what we are seeing is now, not only is our religion being named by others, the terms of our religion others are trying to give us. And look at now what they are saying is Hindutva is bad, but Hindu is okay. Again, they are trying to divide us and try to hold it. So that is where it's all coming down to now. So we see a continuity across 200 years of the other person, the other trying to say who we should be. I'll show you a slide, very important, just a simple slide. What's happening is the concept of other. Look at this. There's a concept of other. Just show you 1 second. What's happening is, look at this. The concept of other is very important to understand among religions. So what the other is deciding who we will be. And if you look at actually the Hindu society, what is the biggest question that we have in Hinduism? Who am I? Tattvamasi, who am I? Right? Whereas they are deciding for us and telling us who we are. That's the beauty of it. So they are deciding for us and saying who we are. So instead of becoming Tattvamasi, it's becoming some others are deciding for us.
Yeah. Our light just went out. It will come back in a minute.
We just had a power outage, so you can recharge.
So we are the voice from the heaven.
It's a season for power outages. Yesterday I had one and I was worried. In US, if power goes out, everything is out. So you're back there though.
Yeah, there. So we just complete the statement. So the essence of Hinduism, Dharma, is to search for ourselves. Who am I is an eternal question. And this question has been asked by us, not today, not yesterday, not 200 years back, but from the moment of creation. When creation happened, when the Big Bang happened, when the Hiranyagarbha, the cosmic egg broke open, who was there? At that time, you had Vishnu, from whose navel Brahma came, right? And what is the first question that Brahma asks of the only other person there, Vishnu? He says, who am I? So it's an eternal question, who am I? So who art thou? So who am I? That's a question. And so there's a discussion between the father and son.
And even there, he's unwilling to accept the answer and goes on his own search.
So that is how it comes up as that. So this particular point, which is how you have the story in Shiva Purana of the Lingodbhava and Brahma going up and Vishnu going south and all those. You have the story. So that's there. We discussed the book. But the point is, this question of who am I and the search is an integral part of Hindu thought. And it's not just no teacher or guru can guide you there. The who am I is very personal. In contrast, we have the other deciding for us as to who we all will be collectively. So they're deciding what is Hinduism. They're deciding what is Hindutva. They're deciding this, they're deciding that, they're deciding everything for us. And they're saying, you are that. We are saying, who am I itself is an eternal question. And where they are saying, you are this. So the other is playing into us now. That is what I think we have to grasp, understand. And this is time of realization, because if you're getting into knowledge era, we have to discuss this with knowledge, with the fundamentals of knowing the term Hind, knowing the term Hindu, knowing the term Hinduism, and thereon knowing the term Hindutva. And fundamentally knowing all this, we can take forward in a healthy discussion, engage people, engage with the other, with our knowledge, and say, you don't define us anymore. You have done it for 200 years. but we have regained our strength. We will define ourselves and say who we are. And that's for the external world. But internally, we'll again continue to search, who am I?
Keep evolving.
Keep evolving. So that is why Sanatana, the ancientest of the religions, plus the youngest of the religions, ever young, it's born even today. That is Sanatana Dharma, that which bears.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Wonderful. And, just the understanding the epistemology of those terms and going back to the dharmic question of who am I, right? We are all about the experiential reality and seeking. So thank you for that, decolonizing perspective. And I will quickly invite Ratan Shardaji to give us his perspective on Hindutva and the connection of RSS and Hindutva. We just learned that the term was invented or at least talked about in an essay by Chandranath Basu in 1892. But I think today it's deeply associated with RSS. So Ratan Shardaji, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Richa ji. Thanks, Jai Bansal ji. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on from where you are connecting. I am connecting from Bharat. And I must thank Hari ji and Hema ji for 20 minutes of high-powered, high-potency condensed capsule about Hindu Dharma, Hinduism, and whatnot in the name of Hindu. And as he rightly said, we are the only society which is defined by others. They decide what we are not. And it is time we snatched back our right to define ourselves and decide what we are or tell people what we are. Because there's enough. There is no other religion or society where the insiders are not invited, but outsiders tell you what you are. This is where Dr. Hedgewar comes in, that he did not go by any defined positions. He did not go by any preconceived way of thinking in political terms because he had experienced it all. He was a revolutionary. He was a Congress worker. He was a leader. He went to jail for independence struggle. And then he came to realize that there is something fundamentally wrong with the society. That is, a mainstream Hindu society is divided. It has forgotten its past. It is in a state of amnesia and fights on parochial terms, on terms of sampradayas and different every kind of possible fault lines. So he decided to unite and organize Hindus. So Dr. Hedgewar, founder of the biggest Hindutva movement, he never bothered to actually define who is a Hindu. When people would ask him, he would just shrug off. Because for him, it was like he was not interested in hair splitting or semantics. But it is clear what he called Hindu was basically what the later Indian constitution defined in a negative term. Those who are not Muslims or Jews or Parsis or Christians are all Hindus. Idea of minorities within the Hindu fold came much later as a part of the so-called secular politics. And for him, Savarkar defined Hindutva in 1923. And Dr. Ji more or less agreed with him because that is the time when Dr. Ji had decided that he needs to go out of politics and organize society on the basis of Hindutva. And he also knew that Bharat as a nation, where mainstream Hindu, unless they change, they improve, nothing will happen. Even if Britishers leave, we will have new rulers with the same old thinking. And we see what has happened in the last 70 years, same. So with the same Hindu ethos, traditions, knowledge, and unite and organize them, that was his decision. Savarkar defined Hindutva in the way and Hindustan in the way as Hari ji already talked about. So I will not talk about it. But the same idea of Holy Land was not really carried because when you said Holy Land, you have a little religious connotation. But for RSS, it already mostly had only social connotation and cultural connotations. Guruji carried the same concept. And after all the heat and dust of partition settled down in 1957, he said that we need Ghar Wapsi. That is, people who had left Hindu fold need to come back to the Hindu fold because once they can convert it, they lose their roots, they are cut off from the tradition and culture, and they become isolated, they become alien for the Indian culture and nation as such. So that is Ghar Wapsi. And it was done much before Vishnu Parishad came into being. Vishnu Parishad was born in 1964. So before that, he already talked of Ghar Wapsi. Then after Vishnu Parishad carried on the work of Hindu society in 72, before it died, he expanded his stance and he says those who believe in our forefathers, our history, our same culture roots, they all are welcome. They need not change their religion. And that is based on what Dr. Balraj Bhadoga talked about Indianization of Muslims or minorities. So he supported that idea and said that you need not change your way you worship, but if you believe that you are part of the same history, same culture, you have same forefathers, then you are as good as us, and there is no reason for you to believe otherwise. So Guruji expanded the Hindutva idea a little bit. He took it beyond the religious tone, and he talked about not just talked about Vedic roots, but also people who didn't have Vedic roots. So all the indigenous faiths which are born out of Vedic thought were also included. He went on to say that he was ready to open the temples for them. At the same time, he also promoted Gharvapsi. And now and all the while, all the Hindutva leaders kept on stressing the difference between dharma and religion. Dharma, as already said previously, dharma is dharaititi dharma. That which holds the society is dharma, which holds the society, the family, the individual is dharma. And that is what was stressed all the time. Now, dharma has no religious connotations. Savarkar considered Hindutva and Hinduism different. He said Hinduism is not Hindutva. RSS did not. So for them, both are coterminous. In fact, Manmohan Vaidyaji says that if you speak in Hindi or Indian language, is a Hindutva, which is the tattva or essence of Hindu being Hindu. And if you speak in English, the people who write in English write Hinduism because there is no word like Hindutva in English. So that is all there is to it. Islam is a closed ideology, and dharma, Hindu Dharma is definitely not a closed ideology. So that is why we cannot call it Hinduism. All the Bharatiya terms have similar meaning as compared to, they have different meanings compared to the English language. So there are terms like Varna, there are terms like Rashtra, Dharma, Sanskriti, Moksha, etc., which are Sanskrit words and we cannot be translated. Guruji always talked about it, and even Rajiv Malhotra ji then has gone to create a whole book called Sanskrit Untranslatables, because the time when we translate these typically dharmic words, we lose the meaning of those words. Hindutva is defined as a way of life, as Supreme Court judgment has been quoted by Hariji, that is as a way of life. This is what Swami Vivekananda said in his famous Chicago address when he said, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuta Vadanti, and you need to respect, you don't need to tolerate others. So what are those typical points that can be considered as Hindu or a sense of being Hindu, whichever religion you may or faith you may follow, and it itself has no religious connotations. So it is the respect for all, that is Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuta Vadanti. It is karma, the principle of karma. We don't believe that on the day of judgment, somebody else will decide what we are going to do, where we are going to do. It is our own self-correcting mechanism. What we do is what we get in return. And there is a concept of rebirth, reincarnation, again based on karma, which is common to all the faiths born in India and in the Vedic tradition. You respect nature, you worship nature. You don't worship and respect nature because you're superstitious. You do it. You worship sun because you know every energy, every matter in the world, our entire living being, it depends on sun. And there is also concept of mukti, nirvana, shunya, which is common to all the Bharati traditions. And whether you are astic or nastic, whether you believe in sakar or nirakar, all are Hindus. So the sense of having only one God or only one right way is alien to India, to Bharat. And whether you call it Vedic, whether you call it Indic or Bharatiya or Sanatani or Hindutva, for us they are all similar terms. For us they are the same terms. Some people may try to split hair, but for us it is same. And that is the reason Dr. Hedgewar said Hindutva hi Rashtriyatva hai. That is, Hindutva is Rashtriyatva. That is essence of our nation, is essence of Hindu, being Hindu. So this particular definition for Dr. Hedgewar did not come from the Western definition of nation state. Savarkar, of course, was a modern writer. He wrote the biography on Mazzini, which was banned by British, who took the idea of nationhood from Mazzini, though he was a very hardcore Sanatani. For Dr. Ji, it was the definition given by Vedas, because in Vedas, the word Rashtra is used at least 72 times. Words like Sabha, word like Samiti, word like Janapada are not alien to Bharatiya literature at all, right from, if you even consider 6,000 years back. So that is the background of what we call as our Rashtra, our essence of Hinduness. But there are many elements which are typically non-religious, non-spiritual, but they define the Hinduness of this particular nation in a civilizational sense. For people who know that when you buy in India any vegetable or you go to the local bania or the shopkeeper, he puts something extra in your balance when he weighs. So when he weighs vegetable, he will put some pepper, he will put some dhania, and that is called runga. If he doesn't, the woman will tell, please thoda runga de do. So he will put something else. So this practice is common across Bharatiya subcontinent. It is not common anywhere outside India. That is called runga. It is called osaru, choga, hapta, Avadana, Nandani, Sheena, Savaiya, all meaning same, which is Runga. This is typically Indian way of looking at this because the shopkeeper believes the trade must be done in a dharmic way, and there is an error. That error must be on my side, not on the side of the customer. And there is a concept called Bohani. When you start the day, the labor tells you, sir, this is Bohani time, my first job. So please listen to me. Please give me something more. That sense of Bohani is also typically Bharatiya. It is called Bhavani, it is called Tikkappa, and different words. Every Indian worships the seat of his trade, his place of work. He will do some puja, he will recite some mantra or whatever he believes in, because he believes that's the seat of dharma, the way he behaves, that is the way he must behave as per his duty. And he will worship the balance, he will worship the tools of his trade, and he also do Bhumi Pujan. Now, Bhumi Pujan is not a superstition. Bhumi Pujan is he realized our debt to the nature, that we are digging that nature, that earth, because that is what is giving our prana, and I must seek forgiveness. Even farmer, when he goes with his plow, he worships the earth. That is the beauty of this. When you go to the stage, whether it's Hindu, Muslim, Christian, he will touch the stage reverently. Why does it? Because for him or her, the stage is the place where he will try to reveal the goodness of God, the spirituality, and it could also be a road to his own moksha. That is the beauty of typical Hinduness. We have a lot of common games like Lagori, which is beating the stone, or Atyapata, which is called Upatta, known in other languages. There is Kho-Kho, there is Kabaddi, there is pebbles picking up. All these are typical games, and surprisingly, without any Olympics committees, some sports have been as designated as girls sports, have been designated as boys sports. There was no gender issue at that time, but this tradition is across Bharat, right from Nagaland to Kerala, from Gujarat to Kashmir. Same games, same rules. There is hardly any difference in rules, and this, and surprisingly, only Hindu games or Bharatiya games have concept of rebirth. You have kabaddi where you touch other, when you the other party loses, the person from this side gets up. Same in kho, same in Atyapata. So this beauty of rebirth is also done in our games. Now, till now, there was no charge for water. In fact, it is supposed to punya. So pyao is the biggest punya you can do. So you will find everybody who can do something will put up a pyao. Nobody will charge for water till this bottled water came. But even now, there are examples. You go to remote areas, very poor villages, they will still offer you food, offer you water without charging anything. Even shopkeeper, if offers you water, will say, no, no, sir, it is only boiled water. I will not charge for it. So this concept of doing something for the society, this sense of debt, Pitruren, Matruren, Gururen, or debt to Guru, or even Samajik Ren, all this sense of debt is a sense of duty. So we don't just talk of rights, we talk of duties first. This idea of rights, but bound by duties, typically dharmic, typically Bharatiya. And when we come to this, so we realize when you say Hindu Rashtra, it is not a theocratic concept, because dharma itself is not theocratic concept. So a king and the subject follow their own dharma. King follows Raja Dharma, Praja follows their dharma. And surprisingly, the two kings who are revered by the secular people are the kings who had their own religion, state religion. Samrat Ashoka had Buddhism as official religion, and he went on to destroy people who didn't believe in his dharma. And there was Akbar, the so-called great. He had his Deen-e-Ilahi as the state religion. No other Hindu king ever had a state religion defined, and those are considered to be typically backward Hindus, and these are considered as secular models. Now, to go further about the evolution of the concept of Hindutva, foundational stroke of Vishwa Hindu Parishad hardly has a religious connotation. It's a global idea. It says, I will not speak the Sanskrit shloka, sages of Bharata told their followers and the cults and those who were related to high spiritual path, who here or anywhere, who had spoken, he said, he who accepts and follows oldest Sanatani rules, which are given by the great souls at every time, with complete faith, wherever he goes and wherever is his birth or narrates those Sanatani rules with great affection, he or she who of noble character is known as Hindu. Now we see the beauty of this definition. It takes care of Sanatani values, as I already showed and even Hariji showed, are not religious, they are typically civilizational. And those who believe those civilization values across the globe can be considered as Hindus. Bala Sahib Devras then said that all born in Bharat are Hindus, they can be Christian Hindus, they can be Muslim Hindus, because they are all offsprings of the same culture. And all these are, even they are welcome to the RSS Shaka if they believe in this idea of Hindu. Dr. Mohan Bhagwat has only expanded this idea in a more open manner, which has been recently being discussed in a big way. Atharva Veda talks about what we call today's concept of Hindutva. Atharva Veda wrote various types of bhashas or languages, language speaking people in different behavior or acharana, all of them drinking from the milk from the same one udder. That is the level of commonality, that is the level of civilizational deepness we have. And it is not just RSS, even Veer Savarkar in the same book of Hindutva goes on to say, it may be that at some future time, the word Hindu may go on to indicate a citizen of Hindustan and nothing else. When all cultural religious bigotry has been disbanded its force. The quote is a little longer, but Savarkar also saw the future of Hindutva being expanded to include all this. Perry Anderson, in his book Indian Ideology, says, I quote Dr. Vaidya again, there is something unique about the antiquity of the subcontinent and its tremendous impress of oneness, making its inhabitants throughout these ages distinctly Indian with same national heritage, same set of moral and mental qualities, and a dream unity that has occupied the mind of India since the dawn of civilization. This is the uniqueness of unity that is Hindutva and Hinduness. To end my talk, I'll quote Rangahariji, who quotes a poem by Edwin Markham, that is the ability of Hindus to assimilate and co-opt other people without them losing their uniqueness. Edwin Markham says, he drew your circle and kept me out, heretic, rebel, and a thing to flout. He drew your circle and kept me out, heretic, rebel, and a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle and took them in. So for the example, what we do about Shakas and Huna, they became part of Bharat, they became part of Hindu ethos. That is how we can absorb people while keeping their uniqueness alive. But for this, Hindutva has to thrive and rise in the true essence that Dr. Hedgewar defined. With this, I close my comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ratan Chadaji. That was wonderful. And just the beauty of some of those fine points that you brought out with the games that we have, some of the cultural aspects, how Dharma is a way of life. And it is not just a congregation in a temple or in a place of worship. It is an everyday activity for us. And I think we are accepting questions at this time. We do have 10 minutes. So I will ask the first question to DK Hariji and Hema Hariji, which is here by Arun Garg. He has asked a question, given that the word Hindu is an aberration and interpretation by foreign groups, what should we call ourselves? Should we continue with this Hindu as a term, or should we call ourselves Vedic, Sanatan Dharma? What is the answer to this? Hariji and Himaji.
Thank you, Richaji. It's a good question, and it's been asked by many people many times. See, whether we like it or not, English is the language we speak in. the world over, because it's become the language, the commerce language of the world. Similarly, like that, whether we like it or not, Hindu is a name we have been called, and we have been calling ourselves for 200 years. Okay, and it's a name given to us by people who came to see us. So that name stands. But at the same time, we should not lose our term Dharma or Sanatana, which is the fundamental basis of it. So Sanatana Dharma, Hindu Dharma, and all this. If you look at the Indian constitution, what do we say? Bharat, that is India. So our country has very clearly two names. Like that, we can have two religions, Hinduism and Sanatana Dharma or Hindu Dharma. All these names fundamentally, finally, at the end of the day, mean the same. What is important is we need to understand the meanings of it, the tattva behind it, the principles in it, the concepts in it, the roles in it, the nuances in it, so that we can live as per science, we can live as per our own personal realization, recognition as to who am I, and live in synchronization with nature. See, living in synchronization with nature, living as per your dharma, which is what you bear, your character, that is what is real Hinduism. So you may call rose by any name, but it is a rose. Like that, Hinduism is a name that's come to stay. Hindu Dharma is a name that we can use the word Dharma and Hindu and make it Hindu Dharma, which is what they have done in Australia officially. They call them Hindu, they call themselves Hindu Dharma, the Hindus. Similarly, Sanatana Dharma is a traditional name that we had, because these are religions. For religions, as Dr. Hema said sometime back, it's Mata, Mati. And we had Shad Mata. Adi Sankara himself recognizes Shad Mata, the six Mata, Mati. So those are religions. Hindu Dharma is there. So we have to understand the nuances of all these things and take it forward. Incidentally, all this we've written in a book called Brand Bharat. It's there for all to read.
If I may add something to this.
Sure, please.
Though Hindu word has been given to us by outsiders, it has stuck to us. Now, Hindu is a word which carries all the connotations of what is good and what is bad. Unfortunately, everything bad in the civilization that we have naturally over the period of colonization, many things happened which are not good. Those are imposed on Hindus. So when you say Hinduism, you talk of casteism, you talk of burning the widows, killing the girl child, etc. But all the great knowledge systems, all the great philosophies of Hindu Dharma are snatched away, de-Hinduized, and presented as something unique. So we must own up what is bad, but also own up what is good. If we give up the word Hindu, it is like giving up our what is only accepting what was bad with us, but giving up what is good with us. So we have to prove that Hindu is the best possible dharma, best possible civilization, by not running away from it. I don't like the idea that people who take the best out of Hindu Dharma then try to rename it in a different way, because if you then you end up only with the negatives of what is Hindu. So yoga is not a religion. Yoga has no religion. Then you say Ayurveda has no religion. You will say knowledge has no religion. This will keep on expanding. You will say yoga doesn't require Om. So this is why we must own up and assert this is ours. And you talk about there is something somebody talked about India, that is Bharat. It's true. No other person has two names in the society. We may have two names at home, patent the legal name, not in the society. So sooner or later, I think India will have to go, and Bharat will be the name that will survive.
Thank you, Ratanji. Actually, there are certain countries that's, they may have, like Germany, off the top of my head, I think it's called Alamande in their original language. So I think it's a word in India, Bharat. I guess we do have to accept the fact that we do have multiple identities. But the important question here is, I think at this time, the reason we're discussing all of this in such detail, Ratanji, there is another question about the fact that there's been a weaponization of the term Hindutva, right? Recently, there's been so much going on in the United States as well as around the world and in India talking about this term. And I guess the fact that narrative is so important, the reason they banned books, the British banned Savarkar's book or whatever, is because it's important that narrative are established and we need to build our own. So the question here is, how do you think we can build that narrative and create a better understanding of this term with at least our own people and then around the world?
See, first of all, while all kind of invectives are thrown at Hindu Dharma or Hindu society, we are asked to respond to what was written 5,000 years back or what happened 2,000 years back. Very easily, Islam and Christianity are not questioned about burning at stakes of women in the name of witches, or women having a second or third class status in the Muslim society. So this has to be questioned. The one thing is project our good values and our great universal civilization. At the same time, second is also expose this hypocrisy of what is even currently happening in these religions. You will find no woman pope ever possible, because woman was considered whether she's whether she has a soul or not, whether she's a complete human being or not, even till the 15th, 16th century. So this kind of strange behavior of these people of the book is something that must be questioned and brought out in any discussion. That's I would say. And as far as this fight is there, it will continue. And weaponization, well, Islam and Christian religions, though I didn't want to bring the other religions, are basically weaponized religions. The crusades, the jihads that destroy millions of lives across the world are really what is weaponization. If you use the word Hindutva for one incident here or there, you have to then you have to question the entire complete genocide against the natives, against the blacks, against the people of people outside Arab land, and also pre-Islam, pre-Christian civilizations in Arab land itself. If you when you question this, you realize that there is no such thing as kind of atrocities that are put on in the name of Bharat. If you look at the crime rate of Bharat, whether any kind of crime, it is way below the per capita or per lakh crimes of any Western world. And I can challenge you, please go to the statistics, which is data reveals, and you'll find a lot of data, the kind of human rights violations that happen in the countries, that happen in other civilizations. Compared to that, it is a sheer size where you immediately start bending about one other case, and we say, oh, this country is gone to dog. Sorry. We are surviving with the lowest possible per million or per thousand police force in the world, and have least crime rate per capita because we are dharmic people, because we ourselves decide what is good for us, what is not good for us. It is not the state law which does it. We don't have to protect our shopping malls when lights go out, just to give an example.
Thank you so much, Ratanji. And I guess the last question is, I guess if Himaji, Hariji, if you can weigh in, a minute or two on this topic of how, can we make our children not lose interest? I think that is one of the questions in understanding ourselves and, keeping our identity. So please go ahead. You're on mute, sir.
Thank you, Richaji. It's a very important question that you asked. So what's happening is they're losing interest because it's all too very covered nowadays. We need to understand the core basics and make it simple for them to get interested, which is why each of the terms that we have in our lexicon or the way we do things, I think we should understand the core of each term and explain it to our family members and simplify it to understand it at a very fundamental level, so that then they start seeing the value in it. Now, what's happening is most of the practices and terms, we are using a Western meaning to it, so it gets clouded. But if you go to the core meaning, each one is so nice, simple, profound,
and consistent.
Yes, consistent with nature, consistent with your humanity, consistent with your humanness, consistent with science, consistent with living. Once we start using original terms and understand the original meaning of it, then they will start seeing the beauty in our mati, our intellect, which now we use the word religion, because religion is a very, very, again, a European word. You need to use mati, because religion says you follow. See, fundamentally two things what they use the word faith and belief. Faith means whether it's right or wrong, you have faith in it, you accept it. Belief is you believe it, whether right or wrong. Whereas Hinduism doesn't use the word faith or belief. The two terms has been imposed on Hinduism. Whereas what we say is have your mati, your intellect. You find out for yourself, and if it is fit for use, use it. That is where Hinduism will stand out. That is where the youth
Can I
want to
just
know the right
take a moment?
things
Yes,
and
Ratan.
explain this in the right perspective to them, and they will all understand and take it up as their personal life style, personal life mission of understanding and living in synchronization with science and in synchronization with nature.
And also the fact that the new education policy actually has a civilizational pillar, right? They have one of the,
Can I wait
verticals.
for a moment?
Sorry?
Can I join for a
Yes,
moment?
please, Ratanji. There is a minute left. Please go ahead. I would love to hear you.
There are some cynical or serious question about if it is a way of life, why worry about conversions? Remember, we said that it's a way of life, it's an umbrella way of dharmic life where every Hindu has some sampradaya or the other. Some is Sakar, some is Nirakar. And so everybody has a belief system. All these belief systems come under Hindu Dharma or Dharmic way of life. In fact, I was discussing this. So there are so many. So to say that when you talk of Hindu, you simply dealing with the religious systems, that is not true. All of them belong to the same umbrella, the same culture, and all of them have something common, something different, and we respect all the views. That is the beauty of this entire thing. Secondly, yes, somebody said, why make life complicated? This is a discussion with people who want to understand necessities or niceties of our dharmic way. But for people, simple people, something like ISKCON, I was discussing with a ISKCON scholar some time back, why Swami Chinmayanand, being the one of the earliest ones and most articulate presenter of Hindu Dharma and Hinduism, as it is called now, was less successful as compared to ISKCON. He said in the Western world, it's very easy to follow the Christian way of saying believer, non-believer, sin and non-sin. So there is God, there is Son of God, Christ, there is God, there is Krishna, there is concept of sin, there is concept of Pap and Punya, and believer and non-believer. So it comes to their mind much more easily. So there is one way of presenting a viewpoint in a very simplistic manner, which everybody understands. But for those who want a deep knowledge of Hindu belief system or Hindu culture, they will do deeper studies. So here it is just opening of the mind that how vast the Hindu belief system is or Hindu culture is. It is not to say that you go to that extent, but I can tell you today's youth is much more questioning. It is not like we said, okay, Bhagwan hai to Bhagwan hai, isko haath jodo, Durga bhi hai, Shiva bhi hai. They will question you. They'll ask you why whether Brahma is real or Vishnu is real. Depending on the age group, you have to explain that in the same way, because ours is much more evolved philosophy as compared to the very basic philosophies others have.